1 in 3 women have experienced sexual abuse before the age of 18. And the statistic is like 1 in 5 men. The stories that I've heard about what people have gone through and then what they've been asked to cover up and conceal are really staggering. It happens more frequently than you can possibly imagine under the roof of the home where children live. What would help you is if you talked about it, and in particular for you to tell your mum. And I'm like, no way, I was protecting mum. She paused for a minute and she said, who are you really protecting? And I was like, oh, I wanted to protect my mum, and maybe in a way I wanted to protect myself, but I was protecting the man that had abused me.
Hello, beautiful questers, and a warm welcome to the OneQuest podcast. We are absolutely delighted to have you with us on this journey of learning and self-discovery.
Our guests are not just mentors in wellness and self-improvement, they are adventurers at heart, sharing their unique paths and life lessons.
If you enjoy our show, please subscribe and share. Your support enables us to feature more amazing guests and deliver impactful conversations. Please note that some episodes may cover sensitive topics like abuse, mental health struggles, and personal challenges. Hello, we're so thrilled today to have Karen Garton here with us. She's one of our beautiful OneQuest coaches and has a fabulous book called Speaking from the Scar. So we're very excited to talk to her today. But just to give you a bit of an intro, Karen is a truth teller, writer, and guide for women on the path of deep healing. After decades of silence around early life trauma, Karen chose to turn inward and reclaim her story, not through theory, but through lived experience. Her journey led her to meditation, movement, energy work, and the power of speaking from the scar, not the wound. Today, she's the creator of Reclaiming Me, a soul-led program supporting women to reconnect with their bodies, voices, and inner knowing. Karen brings a fierce gentleness to everything she shares, reminding us that healing isn't about fixing what's broken, it's about remembering what's whole. I'm so excited to have you here, Karen. We've had such beautiful conversations in the past.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm really delighted to be here, and I'm thrilled to see where our conversation will go today. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. And look, before we dive into your course and all of your offerings, I thought we could start with a bit of a grounding moment and just find out a little bit about how you would describe what you do and the kind of people that you tend to work with.
So the work that I do is intended to support people who have had experiences of trauma. So it's often a challenging place that when people find themselves in a challenging place and they're maybe getting therapy or maybe searching, looking for answers, and maybe finding that there's something more, but they're not quite sure what it is and how to put their finger on that. So the programs that I've created are based on my own lived experience of navigating my way through healing childhood trauma.
And how long have you been supporting people in this role?
Yeah, so I guess I started doing work with meditation. That was my first entry point, and guiding meditation. And then moved from that to offering, so that would have been maybe even 10 years ago. And then moved from that to wanting to support in a more hands-on kind of way, I guess. So I've journeyed with learning bodywork and supported people in healing from a bodywork perspective, one-on-one sessions. And then I've also more recently been holding space within a kind of a retreat environment where small groups can come together and sit in circle, share, and do practices that involve movement and so forth. And that's probably been over the last 3 years in particular, but I've been more in that space. And because of I've wanted to bring together survivors of childhood sexual abuse. So I experienced sexual abuse when I was 9 years old. And I wanted to particularly be able to support people in that group, because I feel that there's a lot of generic sorts of healing around. And I found for myself that I wasn't always, I don't know, it wasn't hitting the mark, or it wasn't quite exactly what I needed. So I wanted to create a program that would bring survivors together equally, bringing people together with that in person. I think is a bit of a challenge. So that was really my motivation for wanting to have a recorded program, something that is online, that brings together all of the practices that I discovered were helpful for me in my healing process, and to, I guess, package it up in a way that it's available, self-serve. You can come to it in your own time, at your own pace, in your own timing. So that's when, the Reclaiming Me program, I got the idea for that. Well, when was it? Within the last 12 months anyway. So, yeah.
Wow, pretty fresh, huh?
Yes.
That's great.
Mm.
It sounds like you've had to do a fair bit of inner reflection and sort of really looking at how you've walked the path that you've been on and what's been really supportive and served you. Did you find, you said meditation was really supportive and embodied practices. Did you find that that was important from a present standpoint, or more just to actually sort of reconnect with your body? How did you find that they actually sort of supported that change in how you felt about that?
I think, well, to backtrack a little, I got to 45 years of age and didn't think there was a problem with having experienced sexual abuse in my childhood. I actually believed that that was, well, you can't change what's happened in the past. So I had this kind of denial about it being an issue, and I honestly believed it wasn't. I'd formed a belief to protect myself that I'd never needed to speak about it. And from that place, I kind of created this shell around myself to protect myself, to not have to ever talk about it. And there was an experience that I had one day that kind of cracked me open, and all this emotion came pouring out. And I was like, what is this? I didn't understand why I was having such a big emotional response. And I'm aware now, I'm not answering your question directly.
No, that's okay. This is great.
I'm coming back to it. So I went to have a chat with my friend and talked to her about what had happened, and that, I'd had this experience where I reconnected with some emotion that was, I guessed, from my childhood experiences. And I was really quite excited about it, because I'm actually getting some insight into something that I thought had no significance. And as I was telling her the story, I got entirely in the emotion of it all again. And in that, I realized, and she said, "Oh, you're so not sorted out yet. Like, you've got a bit of work to do." And I was like, oh damn, I really, really thought that because I'd had a good cry that day, that I'd cleared some things out, and now I'm fine. And she said, "Look, no, I really think, you've got a bit of work to do, and why don't you come to meditation with me?" And I'd never been to a meditation. I'd never attempted to meditate before. And I actually thought it was something that, kind of, I don't know, guru people did. It wasn't something that was available to me. And she took me to this beautiful center where they do guided meditations and healing and clairvoyant readings and all sorts of things like this. So I felt totally out of my depth, but had an absolutely beautiful and incredible experience that day that dropped me from this heightened state of, this emotion is all around me and I just don't seem to be able to shift it or get rid of it. And by the time I'd done this 1 hour meditation session, I came out in this like, oh, everything's fine. I'm okay, and it's going to be okay. And yeah, it was really profound. I learned about my breath, and that I'd kind of more or less been holding my breath most of my life. That shallow breather, breathe just in the top of my lungs, and just the invitation to breathe into my belly and to inhale and inhale and exhale through my mouth. I'm like, oh, that's like, oh, there's different ways that I can do this, and oh, this creates a different experience. So that opened the door for me for meditation. And I went every week. It was like, to me, it was better than therapy. I wasn't in therapy at that point. I hadn't done any counselling because I didn't think I needed it. I actually thought I was okay, and I understand now that that's a bit of a fawn response, or a people-pleasing kind of fawning kind of reaction to trauma. I'm okay, everything's fine, nothing to see here. And that was my way of coping with what had happened. So meditation became this tonic that I went every week, and loved it. Absolutely loved and it was a guided meditation. So it was a journey, and I could just go there, lie down. We had yoga mats and cushions, and I pull the cushion up, the blanket up to my chin, and I just kind of close my eyes and drift away. And it was astounding. I had some incredible spiritual experiences during that that really opened my eyes, that this experience of being a body and being a human in the world, there's way more to it than this. And having had that as a felt experience for myself got me more and more curious. And so then I was on a quest by that stage to really what else can I learn, what else is there, where can we go from here? I've kind of forgotten your question now. You asked me about
That's all right.
meditation and how did it help. I think have I answered it?
Look, that's fabulous. I think it's amazing how when you actually start to work with your nervous system, which it sounds like those initial meditation and breathwork practices started to do, and you sort of start to unwind some of that, I guess that layering almost that happens where you're in a space where you're just on autopilot all the time. And as you sort of start pulling that back and paring that back, that opening that then, it's almost like it gives space for the emotions that are there to rise up. It's such a beautiful thing to give your body that opportunity to do that. And do you feel as though sort of through those practices that allowed you to sort of be more in your body? Because I know often with sexual trauma, it can make it a lot more challenging to be embodied. It's much easier to sort of disconnect from that because it's not safe. So, I mean, is that something that you sort of go into a little bit more in your Reclaiming Me?
Absolutely. And I didn't understand it at the time, but and didn't understand it for decades afterwards, but I dissociated. So I was 9 years old when I was sexually abused. It was a neighbour that abused me. And I can vividly remember the detail of what happened, but it was only when I was in my mid-40s that I was discussing it with someone, and he asked me, how did it make you feel? And I actually didn't have an answer. I didn't know how I felt at the time. I didn't have any access to any feelings about how I felt I was kind of neutral about it. And it's only more recently that I can understand that it was actually a trauma response, so a nervous system response of dissociation. So the body is just so brilliantly clever that in this extreme trauma, it, I guess, kind of, cut me in half and went emotions over there, experience over here. So we'll have the experience. We can't avoid that, but we'll just park all the emotions over here. And what I understand, what I experienced is that the emotion that happened when I was 9 was trapped in my body. It was still there. And it was through an experience of feeling fully seen, that it was able to come through. And through somebody asking me to open my heart and actually literally placing his hand on my heart, that it cracked me open. And it then gave those feelings of, I guess, like a portal to move and to be expressed. And I had been, in the lead up to this, I had been curious and wanting to access. I'd become aware that, look, I think there is a problem from childhood that is unresolved. You know, it starts with this little niggle of, my sons were 9 years old. And I go, geez, 9 years old, that's too young to have this kind of crap happen to you. Even though I could look back on my own experience and go, oh, it's okay. I'm all right. I coped. It's okay. It didn't matter. But when my own sons were 9, apparently this is a really common thing for people who have experienced sexual abuse in childhood. Their children get to the age that they were, and then they go, oh, no, that was wrong. And so I started to get more curious about what's not been addressed here. So I'd had this questioning of what's in me that I'm not understanding. So having the intention is so powerful, just to make a decision to go, I want to know more about this. And I really believe that the universe then provided me with opportunities. Things happened, there was that the universe conspired and said, here we go, we'll put someone in front of you that will trigger you. And it was uncomfortable and it was awful, but it was the best thing that could have happened for me. Because it meant that those emotions could start to flow. And in hindsight now, I lived the first 4 decades of my life still dissociated. I was missing out, on life. I was living this kind of black and white. I could have been having a technicolor life, but it was black and white. If you think of emotions as being on this kind of up and down, my experience was like this. I still felt emotions, but they were, I didn't have a full spectrum, a full range, because I didn't understand. And to go to your question about body and how meditation, I think, helped with my nervous system. But the thing that actually supported me to move emotion through my body was that I got curious about tantra. Because I was interested in meditation and the bliss states that I could experience in meditation. And I was kind of like, I wonder if my sexuality has been impacted by, is my experience of sex normal? What is normal sex? And am I having normal sex? I don't know. So I got curious about that. And I had this idea that you could have a blissful experience, like a meditative experience in a sexual experience. So that got me curious about tantra. And while I have had a couple of experiences like that, it's something that you have to practice to be able to, have that happen a lot in your life. But what I learned through that tantra experience was how we are energy. Our bodies are energy. Emotion is energy. I always thought that my emotions were in my head, that I thought how I felt, and didn't understand that emotions were part of my being in terms of, I don't know where they sit, in my cells, in my energy field, somewhere, but they're down here, they're not up here. And those experiences in the Tantra workshops that I did a number of retreats where we did embodiment practices, and through our breath, we breathed energy through our body. And because I had so many blockages, those practices helped to, and it was literally shaking. I was doing a movement meditation, an Osho meditation. We did it every morning. I can't think of the name of it now. But anyway, dynamic meditation, that's it. And we did it every morning on the meditation. And that was a full-bodied expression. And that is really what helped me to unclog and shift and move things. So through learning that, feeling that, those are the sorts of things that, yes, I've included in the Reclaiming Me program. One of the things that I felt I didn't really have so much was a sense of safety around how to journey into healing. I did go and get some counselling eventually, but even with that, it was 1 hour for once a fortnight. Like it was great, but when I was there, but I had so many more questions, and it really just addressed the cognitive aspects of what had happened to me, talk therapy. But going into the body and using meditation as a way to settle the nervous system, and then actively shaking up, I don't know, am I allowed to swear? Actively shaking up the shit, in my body, and shifting it and moving it through, then that's what really created change and transformation for me. But so what I've done in the Reclaiming Me program is to provide a sense of safety first. So how to find safety in your own body. And I'm really big on lots of practices that you can do to understand when you are bringing your nervous system into a sense of being grounded, equilibrium, so homeostasis, so that then if you do a practice that might activate you, you do a journaling thing that connects you with some memories, that activates some emotion, you've got tools to bring yourself back to that grounded homeostasis place again. So I've been really careful about the way that I've structured what's in the program so that anyone that engages with it can learn how to regulate themselves first. And as they move through it, continually come back to those aspects of regulating, moving safely into exploring more and peeling back more layers, getting into more healing, but always coming back to self again.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that part of the story where you were introduced to something new, something that was a little bit, and you went and did the meditation. Yeah. And that's what I think we really focus on at OneQuest, is offering people the choice, the opportunity to come and try something different and new. And even those who are, doing their regular yoga practice, maybe there's more out there. And that's what I think your program is going to be able to do for people. It's not a yoga course. It's not a meditation course specifically. It is addressing something completely different. And for those people who are out there who maybe need that subtle safety behind a screen, I'm not in an environment with other people talking openly about something that happened. It's nice to hear that you took that leap yourself, and the progress and the results that you've had as a result is excellent. My own little share that I have and exposure to what you're talking about is I go down and do the age manager role for my kids at Nippers. And through that, I have to do a whole bunch of online courses, and I have to do my working with children check. And then I have to understand and learn about what can happen when people are trying to groom children, because we're in and around all these children. We have to be aware of what all of that looks like. And it frightens the hell out of me that there is a training program that I need to do to be aware of what this might look like in case I need to identify inappropriate behavior between parents and children, all these sorts of things. Like, there must be a lot of people out there who have been abused and from childhood and whatever ages. Like, can you share anything around that with us as to what that looks like?
The statistics are actually really alarming, actually. There was a recent study done in Australia. I mean, when I say recent, I think it was 2023 that they gathered data from thousands of people. And what they found is that it worked out to something like 1 in 3 women have experienced sexual abuse before the age of 18. 1 in 3. And the statistic is like 1 in 5 men. And this is another thing that often it's more likely that you don't often hear people talk about sexual abuse and in childhood. And that's another reason why I wanted to develop my program and to talk on your podcast today, because there are so few conversations about childhood sexual abuse. We have a taboo in our culture, in our society, and I think, and I get it on one level, it's a difficult topic to discuss. We don't know what to say. We don't know. And like you just expressed, Steph, you've got to go and do this training, and it like it gives you the horrors to think that you actually need to do a program like that. Are there really people out there? Like, we don't want to hear about it. On some level, it's like, this is actually really uncomfortable, and so we don't want to hear about it. And so in our culture, in our society, we have this stigma for someone who's experienced child sexual abuse. For myself, for decades, I just had a story, a narrative internally that went something along the lines of, this doesn't matter, I'm okay, I can't change it, I'll just get on with my life. And I also believe that if I told anybody, and in particular my parents, when I was really young, I thought I'd get into trouble. So I thought it was somehow my fault that it had happened, that, I grew up in an era of, if you weren't, behaving yourself, you got into trouble, what were you doing? You shouldn't have been there. Or, somehow it would be my fault. But also, as I got older, there was that sense of, well, I don't want to talk about this because it will make other people uncomfortable, that perhaps people won't want to hear. It's not something you bring up at a dinner party conversation, kill the party, right? You don't want to talk about it. So it's challenging if you are someone who has experienced it. And also, I'm aware, I didn't have this experience myself, but there are many survivors of child sexual abuse who did tell, but were told to keep it to yourself. That, oh, look, you'll be all right, it's over now, or I don't believe you, you're making that up. There are so many experiences that have been met with resistance because, it might have been a stepdad. Well, we can't say what's happened because that he's our meal ticket. We need him in the family. So the stories that I've heard about what people have gone through and then what they've been asked to cover up and conceal are really staggering. And it happens more frequently than you can possibly imagine under the roof of the home where children live. Yeah, sadly.
The impact that you've shared, you went through decades of just bouncing along, basically. I'm sure the impact on some people might be far more severe and far more impactful for those people in their life and how they carry it and how that holds them back. It's such a shame to hear that these things are happening so often. 1 in 3 for females and 1 in 5 for males. It's just terrible that people out there think that that's an acceptable behaviour.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling that
And the fact that they carry it so silently, and there's so much shame and stigma around that. And really starting to find ways to rewrite that story and rewrite what that narrative is of that inner critic in our heads when things like that happen. It's powerful that you have a program like this that really supports people. How do you find are the first sort of ways that you can start stepping into that, where you can start to reclaim some of that stories and quieten that inner critic without muffling it or, putting sort of a blanket over the whole thing, allowing that sort of the fear and the judgment and all those feelings to come up and for that to feel safe? Is that something you can?
It's such a good question, Catherine. Yeah.
It's so layered,
because
isn't it?
We don't just, having experienced a trauma like this and having either been told to put a lid on it or choosing, and I wasn't told to keep a secret, I just did that. And I think this is also something about people who perpetrate. They actually know in a lot of instances they don't need to make a threat because a child that's been groomed won't tell. They actually don't have to threaten you. I wasn't threatened, but I didn't tell. Now that I've gone off on a tangent, I've forgotten the question that you asked me. I'm sorry. Remind me.
I think it's just more about, how you start to rewrite that internal story and sort of start to feel comfortable with that.
Yes. And for me, it happens in stages. So you don't just wake up one day and go, click, I'm now going to start talking about this. That's not the reason why or if I speak from my own experience, the reason why I shut down, and I only understand this in retrospect, was it a nervous system response? My energy field just contracted and said, no, I don't want to ever go back there again. That's not something that should be dealt with, or clamp it down. And so the process of starting to address that needs to be gentle, needs to be kind, it needs to be compassionate, it needs to be slow. So I'm sitting here today speaking with you openly. If you would have told me 15 years ago that I would do this, I would have said you're absolutely bonkers. There is no way I would be able to say the words child sexual abuse without being a blubbering mess. So it takes stages, gentle, compassionate approach. And I so wish that I would have had a program like what I've created 15 years ago, so that I could gently just move through. And for me, first stage was acknowledgement that what happened was not okay. And then what do you do with that? Well, for me, it was writing in my journal. I used to do a lot of journal writing. And when I would go to these meditation classes, often the meditations would take me on journeys where I would see an aspect of what I needed to heal, the direction that I would need to go next. So, and that's why guided meditations are a big part of my Reclaiming Me program. So they're intended to reconnect you with your inner child, because in some respects, for me, I kind of abandoned my inner child. I just went, oh, suck it up, love, you'll be fine. We've got to get on with life. And that's a bit crass, I know, but that's kind of the attitude that I had, because I was just operating in my survival mode. I was in a permanent fight and flight. I hadn't gone back to homeostasis. So the idea that I have this inner child, this young, innocent, hurt part of me that was never acknowledged, never had her feelings addressed, never had someone wrap their arms around her and say, my God, what happened to you was just dreadful, and let me hold you now. And so in the meditation process, I set up a structure where you can do that for yourself. So you can wrap your arms around yourself as the little one, and give her the love and care, her or him, the love and care and support that they need. And then in that acknowledgement, there's an opportunity for those feelings to start to move through. And with that level of compassion and care, it starts to feel safe to do that, because that's another thing. It doesn't feel safe to talk about this, to explain it, because the emotions take over, and then we get lost in our emotions potentially, or we're scared of our emotions are locked down. And one thing that I learned pretty quickly was that you have to feel it to heal it. And when you've experienced an enormous trauma, the prospect of feeling it is like, oh, whoa, I don't want to do that. And for me, I didn't even know what was there, because I'd done that dissociation thing. So it needed to be gentle, and it needed to be gradual, and in a way that I could hold myself with love and care and compassion as I did it. So I would do a way better job of it now if I could go back and do it for myself. And that's why I created my program, because I want, for anyone else who is wanting to reconnect with their inner child, wanting to support their nervous system and begin to explore their story and feel more supported, that's why I created the program. Yeah.
And before we hit record for today, I was listening to all the retreats that you've been going to, where you met Catherine as well. So it sounds like you're still really practicing the you part of improving life, improving yourself, healing experiences, and looking for what to next. Is that what you're trying to do while you're going through these retreats? You're still looking for, peel that surface back, peel that next layer back, still look for more, and just really push yourself to make sure that you're working on every little aspect that could improve life in some way?
It's a great question, Steph. I think it's changed along the way. So in the beginning, I would go and participate in, meditation, and I knew when I walked in, I'd be in this, like, I know I want to do this, but I'm actually scared to do this. I know it'll be good for me, but oh God, what's going to come up? What's going to like surprise me and take me out? And because there were occasions where I would do an experience and I'd be a blubbering mess, like this emotion that had been, inaccessible for decades would come up, and it would it's like, starting to crack a damn wall. This emotion wants to come through. And so I was kind of a bit like, oh God, what's going to happen today? Still wanted to have the experience because I knew that there were benefits on the other side of it, that having felt it to feel it to heal it. And then on the other side of that, there's this like, oh, I feel lighter. I feel better. I've got a better understanding, whatever. But then some point along the journey, I don't know, can't remember exactly where it was. And I was doing a lot of tantra retreats at that time. So I was exploring my sexuality as well. And I got to this stage where I was like anticipating, yeah, let's get in there and peel back these layers. Let's sort this rubbish out, So there was a real excitement about wanting to, peel things back. And, I've heard so many people say about child sexual abuse in particular that healing can be a lifelong journey. And when I hear that, I'm going to be stuck with this for the rest of my life.
Mm.
I have to manage this for the rest of my life. That's not been my experience. I've worked at, let's sort this crap out. And I believe that if you choose to heal and if you choose to do whatever you're drawn to do, to understand what's, how to be have the cleanest energy that you possibly can have. And for me, that's what it's about. It's about having that, being a clear vessel, not cluttered up with rubbish. Because if I want to create a life that feels authentic and pointing in the direction of what I want, I don't want to have any of that old residue from anything that's from the past. So very, very, actually, I can't remember the last time that I had an experience where I went into a meditation or a retreat or something like that, and some of that old rubbish came up. So never say never. So many times I've gone, oh, I've fixed that, I've healed that now. And then the next time I would do a practice, to be back again. But it actually has been a very long time since I've been caught by any energy or emotion from my childhood experiences. So I do believe it's possible to heal in a way that, and now when I go to the retreats, it's all about having the spiritual connection and expanding into greater oneness and connection and those sorts of things. Yeah.
Amazing. And I love how you talk about the science and the spirituality and how they both play such an important role. You're talking on one hand about your nervous system and calming that, and then about using the breath and your energy, but then also about being sort of connected to something that's so far greater. It's beautiful when you can marry the two together, because I've always felt that that's where the biggest transformation has been for me. Have you found that stepping into that spiritual side has helped you kind of unravel some of that even more and created, ability to have more transformation?
Definitely. I'll tell you a little story if that's okay.
Please.
When after I'd started meditating at this centre, they had clairvoyance. You could, go and have a reading. So I booked in to have a reading because I thought, this will be a bit of fun. And, I was a bit stuck with my job and what have you. So I went in, booked in. And as soon as I get in there, so this was very early on in my healing sort of experience. And as soon as I get in there, she says, I'm getting that you're blocked. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, well, you're blocked. You're not moving forward in life. There's something that you need to clear up to be able to progress. I'm like, I'm a bit annoyed about this because I'm assuming that that's about the sexual abuse that I experienced when I was 9, and I really don't see what I can do about it. And she's like, what spirit are telling me is that you're what would help you is if you talked about it, and in particular for you to tell your mum. And I'm like, no way, I am not telling mum. She would be hurt, she'd be upset. Imagine, I'm a mother, imagine finding out your little one has had this experience. I wanted to protect her from that. I didn't want her to know, because I was a grown-up myself. I had a couple of kids. I'm like, I'm okay, it's fine. We don't need to bother her with this. I'm all right. And she kept insisting, they're telling me you need to tell your mum. I'm not telling her. And I'm crying by this point. I'm really like, in these. And I said, just don't see the point in like, and she said, I was protecting mum. And she paused for a minute and she said, who are you really protecting? And I was like, oh, I wanted to protect my mum, and maybe in a way I wanted to protect myself, but I was protecting the man that had abused me. I was protecting a pedophile by not speaking. And I went, oh, I'd actually never looked at it from that perspective before. And that was a message from a clairvoyant. So
wow.
Definitely spirit had, and I went home after that and went, I have to tell my mum. I didn't want to, but there was this real like, he's getting away with this. The guy that did it was a neighbor. He was known to our family. He was still someone, he had his own, he went on to have his own family and children. And I'm like, he's a granddad. Like they need to know the truth about him. So that started a whole process. After I told my mum, was one of the worst conversations I've ever had in my life, but she was beautifully supportive and, obviously angry and sad and a whole host of emotions, but she gave me the hugs that, I didn't get when I was 9. And from there, I had this freedom. I could tell anybody. Then I realized that I'd always ran this story that I don't want to go to the police. I wouldn't want to put myself through that, blah, blah, blah. After I told mum, I went, well, actually, I could go to the police if I wanted to. And I did. And I made a report. It ended in a court case, and he was convicted and he went to jail for 5 years. So... wow. Spirit knew.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So I really felt guided, and there were so many points along the way where I had this inner knowing that it was important for me to speak up, not for my sake, but because it would help other people. And because I did, the perpetrator, when the police arrested him, they were able to tell his then girlfriend what was going on, the woman he was getting ready to move in with, the woman who had 2 teenage daughters. So I go, thank goodness that they were protected from him. So, there was so many little things that helped other people through my coming forward and making a statement. Yeah. We're stronger together.
Yeah.
And while your course may be talking to your experience a little bit more, I continue to hear that there's ongoing issues for females in particular, feeling safe, being able to walk home from the bus stop or whatever. And I don't know what that sort of conversation would look like as far as sexual abuse goes, ongoing problems that happen in this world. But would there be other demographics that would benefit from your course? Like if it's not child-related abuse, like is there, for adults, could they just still get something in value from learning how to lean in and start working through it?
Yeah, okay. Totally. Like I do my own experience is the thread that holds that program together. It's infused through the whole thing, but then there are practices. So someone might have experienced some other type of trauma during early years, teenage years. So yes, it doesn't have to be. I mean, I talked about that I was 9, but you might have had a sexual assault in your teenage years or even in your 20s. So I think that it's the principles of what I cover would be applicable, yes, in a whole host of different, anywhere where there's an experience of feeling like my life's black and white and I want it to be color, or I feel contracted, I feel less than, I know I've got potential for more and I just don't know how to access it. Any of those sorts of things, definitely.
How do we cast that wide net to everyone who thinks that they're okay, and really they need a reality check and to think, maybe I'll just give it a try. Okay, like this stuff has bothered me my whole life. I've never admitted to it, but I really do need something to break this cycle, because there's some people out there, I'm sure, that need the help.
Yeah, totally. And there's a tipping point, I believe. We get to a point in our lives where the discomfort of doing nothing gets greater than the discomfort of actually taking some action and starting to move in another direction. And I think sometimes people get to a stage in their life where they go, there's nothing I can do, and they kind of throw in the towel and give up, and they just exist. And I think, what a waste, there's so much that we can experience in life. And it's just a shame not to jump in, play on your edges, discover what there is. And particularly with a program that's online, you can do it in your own space and time. I'm pretty sure that there hasn't been anyone that's done breathwork, meditation, journaling that ended up, having, causing death or anything really tragic, So, there's a potential for some really positive outcomes.
So if someone listening was feeling a bit unsure as to whether to step into some of these practices, and worried that, whether healing was even possible for them, is there any advice you could give them about, what that would be like for them to step in and some reassurance of what's possible, I guess?
Yes, I think that I just want to say, give it a try. There's potentially not much to lose, but so much potential for gain. The course is structured in a way that it's very step by step. There are practices that you can use. A lot of them are short. Some of them are a bit, when I say short, 5 or 10 minutes. So it's not necessarily a large commitment. So there's videos that explain. So there's quite a bit of me talking about my experience and what I've learned. So there's that kind of instruction that helps the mind, calms the mind. Oh, okay, this is what we're going to do. Puts us in a place of being open to then receive information. And then an encouragement to try this practice, listen to this meditation recording, write about this in your journal. Here's a journal prompt. So everything is done in a gradual and step-by-step kind of way that supports you. And look, if you're someone who's like, let's get into it, you can dive right in and binge on all of it and march your way through really quickly. So you can take it at your own pace. And I actually had recently a woman contact me. She came to an event that I ran as an in-person event, which the Reclaiming Me recorded program is based on. I ran it over a weekend, and she'd also read my book, and she rang me and said, I thought maybe something was wrong. Called her back. What's up? She said, no, I'm just calling you to thank you. She said without this, she'd been in therapy for years. She'd been doing all sorts of other things. But she said, having been able to hear and witness your story has been so affirming for me. And there's been so many aspects of your story where I've identified myself, and it's validated me and my experience. So being able to hear from someone else talk about, because we just don't hear anyone talk about what it's been like to heal from sexual abuse or to begin a healing journey. And I'm not suggesting that you could do this 9-week program and be like, okay, done with that. It's a starting point. It's a place, but the practices that are in it are ones that you can keep coming back to again and again.
That's beautiful. To get that sort of feedback must be really, really reassuring that you're making a difference in people's lives. So congratulations.
Very special.
On stepping
Thank you,
up
Steph.
and stepping into that role. It's great.
And that is when when I started to create the program, when I started to run workshops, it's all about how can I help others? Because I was for so many decades in this like fog of not seeing the truth. And once I could see the truth, I'm like, oh my God, I need to shout this from the rooftops. Everyone needs to know, like, you don't have to be existing. There are steps you can take. There are things that you can do to move towards a more fulfilling, more whole life. It's for me, it's about coming back to a sense of wholeness. So many that have experienced any kind of sexual trauma will talk about feeling like they've had something taken from them. Something's been stolen, taken away. And the program is intended to bring you back to your wholeness, to bring you back to your sense of self, to why it's called Reclaiming Me, taking back the aspects that feel like you've been robbed of. And
I like that you've... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, from my perspective, it's absolutely possible that you can reclaim your whole self.
I like that you've got the grounding elements woven into this as well. So I can imagine it might be really difficult for someone to step in, bring that emotion up, but also how to come back down and to reground yourself afterwards, because it can be quite, well, from my personal experience, disruptive to go into that space, like laying down in bed at night after you've done some work. Sometimes it can kind of roll around. So that's great that you've woven that in as well. Really important.
Absolutely. Yes. And it can feel like you're the only one that's on this path of healing. We talked about the statistics earlier. There are hundreds and thousands of people that have had a similar experience, but there's so few places where you can come together in a spiritual kind of way. Incorporating these somatic kinds of practices, meditative kinds of practices that have that focus on sexual trauma. So I feel like it's unique. I've never come across anything like it anywhere else that has that focus. So it's. I hope that lots of people find it.
That's wonderful.
Yes,
yeah.
Because I want everyone to live in colour.
I love that. That's such a beautiful thing. Beautiful concept. And I think what you've so shown us is that in the reclaiming of yourself and of your story and of your voice. I mean, you're leading public speaking and story sharing, and you run your own meditations, you have courses, you've written a book. And look at the power of really turning up authentically and just saying, yes, this is me 100%. I love you said that you're such a spokesperson for that. And it's really beautiful to see. Thank you so much for creating such a beautiful course.
And it has not, thank you, Catherine, it has not been easy to do, I just want to say too. And again, there might be people listening that are thinking, oh, I could never do what she's doing. I would never have imagined 15 years ago that I would be sitting here talking to you today, or that I would be leading public speaking training, or that I would be hosting an event for storytelling. But these were all things that I discovered along my journey. That's, tell your story. And there's a beautiful Brené Brown quote about owning your story. Own your story, because if you deny your story, it owns you. And when you own your story, you get to write the ending. You get to choose the direction. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Karen. I know that we've been on for a little while and we could keep talking for a lot longer, but it's been wonderful to hear about your story and what you've created and the way you're helping people. So I'd like to say a big thanks, and thanks for joining the podcast today. I hope that we've been kind to you and we haven't attacked you with too many questions. And
not at all, Steph. It's been an absolute delight. I've really enjoyed it. It's just felt like a chat with friends. So thank you for having me on. And I feel that it is really a privilege to be able to share what I've discovered And if it helps just a couple of people along their path, then it's so worthwhile. So yeah, even just from listening to our discussion today, if this will make a difference, that maybe people might go, oh, okay, maybe that is a thing I need to have a look at. Maybe that is a direction I need to put some attention on. So that's always my objective and intention in the conversation. So thank you for having me here. It's been an absolute delight.
Oh, you're so welcome. And for anyone who's interested in stepping into Reclaiming Me, they can jump onto the OneQuest website and hop into her course and really start your pathway to peace and reclaiming your voice. So thank you again, Karen.
Thank you, Catherine and Steph.